Former Republican Congressman Bill Thomas was chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. He's now vice chairman of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission. It's great having you on the program today, sir. We did just hear from Republican leadership sort of painting the results in the terms of a referendum on the Obama administration and saying health care was the tipping point with the American public. Translate that for me. What does that mean? Do we just expect less funding from House appropriations towards the health care initiatives?
No, Margaret, none of us know what it means because, frankly, we have an opportunity to test the next Congress, and that is in this lame duck session that was created, which is going to have to handle a number of very important issues. I think we learned once again that the fundamental basis of American politics is accommodation and compromise. I think to a certain extent, some of us, especially you folks who are observing, missed a fundamental point of this election, and that is most of the contested elections that still haven't been determined were because of third party, fourth party, fifth party candidates denying a majority. And what we have now is a group of people who showed fundamental accommodation and compromise, the Tea Parters, because they wound up running as Republicans. So the differences in the Republican Party will be settled behind closed doors after they won. That's a fundamental change. The other point is the Republican Party broadened its base. There are more women, there are more ethnicity, there are more racial groups in the Republican Party today than 2 days ago in elected office, and the Democrats have narrowed their base based upon the moderates who lost.
Right.
Ideologues, people who are motivated by ideas, think that people who are against them are wrong. They tend to call them enemies. And I thought it was quite interesting that President Obama, less than a week ago, called people who opposed him enemies. The question is, can the president understand that American politics is accommodation and compromise, and that will the Republicans understand that they need to stay with what got them in office? This is going to be a very interesting lame duck. It doesn't begin January 3 next year. It begins shortly, less than a month away, when the Democrats who are currently in power either have to decide that they're going to try to blow up the place with offering options that the American people have rejected, or they're going to reach out and try accommodation and compromise. That was the fundamental point I think the Republican leadership was making. Well,
Wall Street's very interested in policy-wise what's going to change for them. I mean, you've got a unique vantage point being, at the helm of the FCIC. There are about 240 rules still left to be worked out when it comes to Dodd-Frank. What are the reforms that should be implemented and tweaked?
Well, most of it's going to be fleshed out with regulations. The very first regulation that was offered was knocked down. It had to do with the rating companies, and that's all going to be done by the bureaucracy. By the way, that's also true with health care. The regulations that are going to be implemented are based upon the bureaucracy and, frankly, the leadership in the administration that's going to be in power for the next 2 years. That's going to indicate whether or not the president and his team understands accommodation and compromise as a fundamental in American politics, or if they're going to continue to be ideologues and try to ram through that which they believe that the American people have pretty fundamentally rejected in this election.
Well, as you said, a lot of that has to be worked out behind closed doors. But do you see the dynamic changing between the business community and the administration?
Well, I would hope, since the business community also deals with accommodation and compromise. They thought that the Democrats were going to be in power, not just in the administration, but in the Congress. They now realize they are not. Let's see to what degree they understand they need to change the way, one, in which they funded elections, two, the way in which they're willing to take a stand on what we believe are pretty fundamental positions in business, and that they'll stay with changing the economy so that private sector can motivate others who will provide jobs. The tax code is going to be very important in this area. in terms of how we do it. If the government doles it out, you're going to see continued high unemployment. If we're able to make some changes in the tax codes so that individuals have the money to make decisions for themselves, especially small businessmen, I think you'll see some stimulation in the economy.
Sir, I'd love to have you back on to talk about all your experience ushering through free trade agreements and what we might see in the next few years on that front. But we've got to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, given your background, I'm very interested in talking to you about that, because it is going to be an important phase of the government over the next several years.
All right.